How's it going, Starseekers? My name's Luke and welcome back to the channel, where today we're going to be taking a look at an awesome little retro styled action platformer known as Okinawa Rush, and this one sees you playing as one of three powerful martial artists as they face off against the evil Black Mantis clan, and you can expect some old school levels of difficulty, some brutal combat and hordes of enemies and demons to slay. With that said then, let's get straight on into this review and see what's what, and don't forget to like and subscribe to help me out and stay up to date with all my latest content. So Okinawa Rush is a bit of a strange one, as its story follows three different characters whose stories all kind of intertwine with one another, and by playing as each of the characters you get to learn a little bit about each of the backstories and how they actually got involved with fighting the Black Mantis clan. Now at the forefront of it all we have Hiro Yashima, an elite martial artist whose training has given him almost superhuman abilities, and the Black Mantis clan discover that his secret training manual is what made Hiro such a badass, and so they're like, we want some of that shit, and decide to invade his home, snatching his kids and murdering Hiro's wife while he's away doing a sport of fishing. Hiro then returns to discover all of this, and needless to say he's not a happy bunny, and so he embarks on a revenge mission to take down the Black Mantis clan and their demonic leader. Now the other two characters have their own reasons for getting involved with the fight. Mei Lin appears to have some kind of connection to the Demon Lord himself, and Shin Yashima, the brother of Hiro, initially heads out to acquire an antidote from Hiro's wife, only to find her a little bit dead, and so he heads out to take on the Black Mantis clan himself and presumably find his brother in the process. Now the story interjects at the end of each level, directing the character in different ways, and we soon find out about a bunch of magical crystals which we have opportunities to collect as the game goes on. I won't go into any details, but these crystals have some relation to the Demon Lord himself, and each character actually has three different endings to unlock, which I thought was a pretty cool addition, as it gives the player a reason to play through the game multiple times and also expands on its lore. Overall, while the themes within the game's plot aren't particularly original and you've likely seen them done before in one way or another, I felt that the story really added some value to the game, as it gave the characters motives and set a solid foundation which it then built upon, and it was generally just nice to see an action platformer not solely focused on the action, and instead adding an enjoyable storyline to follow alongside it. Now if you're not one for storylines and just want to focus on the action, Okinawa Rush comes with two game modes. A standard arcade mode which drops you straight into the game and gives you a limited number of continues in which to complete it, and a story mode which, aside from of course being more story focused, introduces a number of different gameplay mechanics. If it is your first time playing though, I highly recommend playing the story mode first, as far as I can tell arcade mode comes with one difficulty setting, and it really doesn't do a good job of explaining anything about the game's combat system, so you'll likely get your ass handed to you if you try this first. Story mode on the other hand gives you a bunch of different training courses to help you out, and you can also reduce or increase the difficulty, tailoring it to your own skill level, with higher difficulties providing larger rewards, but also beefing up the enemies and increasing the overall number of them. It's worth noting that both game modes can actually be played in two-player mode, which is an awesome addition in my opinion, as it really helps with the difficulty, though while story mode has an option in the menu to select two-player mode, you have to actually connect a second controller before starting arcade mode to play it with two players, and I didn't see anywhere where this is clearly explained to the player. Now there are actually quite a lot of mechanics at play in Okinawa Rush story mode, which make it a much more involved experience when compared to arcade mode. Each player comes with their own set of stats, for instance, such as health, defense, attack power and speed, and before you actually head into levels, these can be improved upon by completing training courses which involve several different mini-games. The difficulty level rewards that I previously mentioned include both your high score points as well as an in-game currency in the form of gold, and outside of levels this gold can then be spent at several different shops to unlock a bunch of different costumes for your characters, as well as ornaments to improve your dojo and amulets which can be equipped on your characters, and both of these improve your character's stats in different ways, allowing you to take on the game's harder difficulties. Now turning to the gameplay itself, Okinawa Rush is very much your standard action platformer when it comes to completing levels, and they generally involve you working your way through them, beating down anything and everything in your way, and then facing off against a boss at the end of levels to complete them. Where the game really stands out though is with its combat system, as it's not just as simple as throwing a few punches and kicks, and there's actually quite a lot of depth to it with different combos and grab moves available to you, which not only makes it more enjoyable, it also really rewards skillful play. You can of course just button mash your way through the game and still manage to look pretty awesome when doing so, but when it comes to the difficulty levels, this will only get you so far, and you're really going to have to master the game's combat system if you want to stand a chance when playing at higher difficulties. Now it does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you get into it, the combat itself feels really solid. The hits feel like they have some real weight to them, and the overall pace of the game is pretty fast, so it always feels engaging and the action rarely lets up. The enemies in Okinawa Rush consist of various ninja and samurai and a bunch of different demons, and while many of them can be defeated in just a few hits, there is some good variety to them, with both melee and range variants included in the mix, and several larger enemies which actually require you to be a little bit more tactical with your approach to them. The game's bosses though are where you're going to really have to fight strategically, as each of them have their own unique movement and attack patterns for you to contend with, and while they don't put up too much of a fight on easier difficulties, you will get your ass handed to you if you try to face tank them on the higher difficulties, and in general I thought they were really well done and they did a good job of teaching you how to fight defensively, which also really helps when going up against hordes of smaller enemies. So all in all, I have to say that I was pleasantly surprised with the overall depth of the mechanics in Okinawa Rush. I went into it expecting just another action platformer, but I came away thinking that it definitely sets the bar for what future developers should be aiming for, especially if they're looking to develop a modern action platformer but still want to retain that retro vibe to the game. Now I do have some minor criticisms when it comes to navigating the game's menus and the lack of explanations regarding what the training and dojo systems do, but you do eventually figure out what's what with them, and you can to a certain extent get by without them. There were also a few frustrating platforming segments in the game which did give my rageometer a bit of a tickle, but that was mainly down to me just being a little bit shit and not being patient or rushing with my movement. Overall though, Okinawa Rush is a solid action platformer, and while it likely went unnoticed by many people, I definitely think it deserves more attention, and I'd say it's a must play for anyone who's a fan of the genre. So both visually and audio wise, Okinawa Rush is definitely up there with some of the best looking and sounding games I've played this year. The pixel art and sprite work in the game is fantastic, with some great attention to detail given not just to the environments and characters, but also in the game's menus themselves and the animated cutscenes. The game's sound effects are also great and do a really good job of emphasising the impact of your attacks. The quality of the voice acting is generally pretty good, but can be a little cheesy at times, but not in a bad way, and it sort of has that 80s charm to it, and the music in Okinawa Rush is one of its standout features, as it really captures that early 90s vibe, offering some high tempo chiptunes to play along to, which I felt really added to the overall retro appeal of the game. So performance wise, for the most part the game handles pretty well on the Switch, though there were some frequent frame rate dips when there were a lot of on-screen enemies, and this can become a bit of an issue, especially when it comes to the harder difficulties. Issues wise, I've already mentioned the lack of explanations with some of the game's mechanics, but in addition to this I'd say that not having multiple difficulties in the arcade mode was a bit of a mistake, as I felt it forced new players to play story mode, and I think that the game could have done with some more kind of accessibility options such as unlimited continues, as it's still not the easiest of games even on the lowest difficulty setting, which could put off some of the more casual players. When all said and done though, in my opinion Okinawa Rush is a fantastic little action platformer. It has some really enjoyable combat and a good amount of depth to its gameplay mechanics, some solid platforming and an interesting storyline with multiple endings. And when it comes to my own personal rating of the game, I'm going to be giving Okinawa Rush 4 out of 5 stars. If you've been looking for a new action platformer to play which also supports 2-player co-op and are up for a bit of a challenge, then I highly recommend giving Okinawa Rush a go. It's available in digital form on the Switch eShop, but if you're a collector of physical games, then head on over to Pixel Heart's website where it's available in limited quantities on both the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation, and you can also pre-order the upcoming Black Mantis edition, which includes a bunch of different goodies. And so that about does it for this review of Okinawa Rush on the Nintendo Switch. Don't forget to hit that like button if it helped you out. Let me know your thoughts and opinions on the game in the comments section below. And if you watch my content regularly and enjoy it, then please consider subscribing to the channel. For now though, I just want to thank you all once again for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves and game on.